Hello, everyone. Welcome to Harmonic Heart. We're a music blog dedicated to showcasing musicians' stories and talent. I'm your host, Chris Millette. I'm excited to have guitarist Jeremy Hairston on the show today, man. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. Jeremy J.R. Hairston is a Baltimore, Maryland-based guitarist, virtual instructor, gear enthusiast, performer, and session player. Since the age of 17, Jeremy has devoted diligent practice to his craft, playing, gigging, recording, and writing across jazz, blues, rock, R&B, and Christian gospel genres. He's a band member and lead guitarist with Lorde Ana, Mercy Band, and at Messiah Community Church. He's a proud graduate of the Real HU, Howard University, where he earned a BS in psychology. Yeah, so again, welcome, Jeremy, man. I'm glad to have you on the show.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah, man. So, I would say I'm, a bit of a family friend.
Yeah, for sure.
If I say, myself, my freshman year, I was involved with the Impact movement at Howard, and,
Hmm.
your sister Leah was the president of that Bible study, and I got to spend time with that group, and, it was a really, meaningful time, for my life, and
Yeah.
yeah, and since then I got to meet, each of your siblings, and one thing I really love and kind of appreciate about y'all is how much publicly so positively support each other. So I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then you also play guitar for the Mercy Band. So y'all were the hosts of the Series DC open mics, and you would help me,
yeah.
get set up with my guitar, and y'all are really welcome in, and of course y'all crushed it, every time. So
Oh, thank you. Yeah. That was a lot
yeah,
of fun. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, man, we'll go ahead and start with how did you first get into playing guitar?
So I got into the guitar sort of around my freshman year of high school.
Mm,
So I guess I was like 14 or 15.
mm,
Um, at my school, we had a wood shop,
mm.
and the shop teacher, his name is Mr. Howard. He um, builds guitars and basses like in his spare time.
Oh.
And he's a bass player, guitar player himself. And
Mm,
so
mm.
he had a class specifically for guitar building.
Oh.
And I remember he had that class for years before, and the school I went to is K through 12. So when I was growing up, I would see when we'd be in wood shop at younger ages, I'd see the high schoolers like building their guitars and stuff. I thought that was just the coolest thing.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so I didn't know how to play, wasn't super interested in learning how to play, but I wanted to take that class because I wanted to say I built a guitar.
Mm,
And so, uh, yeah, so in that class, I learned just about the guitar in general as an instrument,
mm, mm,
about how electric guitars work, different types of like pickups and how different woods affect things, how it sounds, and
mm,
all that. And
mm,
also history and just like influential people. And
mm.
so early on in the class, when we'd be drawing our designs and stuff like that, our teacher would put us on to just like different artists. So
Mm, mm.
he played, I remember two videos specifically that he played, and I was like, oh, it would be really cool if I could do that. So he played
Ah.
Jimi Hendrix playing Hey Joe at Monterey Pop Festival,
Huh. Mm.
1967. It was his
Wow.
first concert in the US after going to England, where he sort of made his name.
Mm,
Um, and that it was really just like a transformational experience
mm.
for me to see that for the first time.
What do you think about that
Um,
video really stuck out to you? Um,
it was just so um, unattainable, but yet so
mm,
human at the same time.
wow. Wow. Mm,
If you've ever listened to Hendrix, then you know like what he plays is so natural and so
mm, mm,
so pure,
mm,
but at
mm.
the same time, it sounds and feels so magical. I don't know
Ah,
how else to
ah.
explain it.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. Um, and so I was just captivated by that, and I started
Hmm.
listening. I would go down rabbit holes on like Pandora Radio and
Wow. Right.
Spotify, or whatever was out at the time.
Yeah.
Uh, and I really got into the music then. And then the second video he played was Prince playing. While My Guitar Gently Weeps, the Beatles song, the George
Oh.
Harrison song, at the
Oh.
2004 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction. So they
Hmm.
had
Oh,
all
okay.
these stars. Tom Petty was playing.
Hmm.
George Harrison's son was on stage, and Prince like closed out the song with this amazing solo, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh! Like, what is this?"
Right.
It was incredible.
Uh,
And
hmm.
so, um, yeah, those two videos
Mm.
specifically were really inspiring to me. Seeing Hendrix and Prince, and
Yeah, those sound
yeah,
like powerful moments, and yeah, just being that's yeah, I think what I like about, that story, you taking us back to that class. I guess two things. One, just such a deep appreciation for the guitar instrument, just the
yeah,
different, woods and materials and like what it takes to actually go into making a guitar. Just that deep level of appreciation, and then also seeing, just, the greats doing their thing and being awe-inspired by them too. Wow.
yeah,
Yeah, that's really powerful. Man, I think, okay. Yeah. So, that class was really, sounded like it really inspired you. So, how did you go to picking up guitar to learn to play yourself?
yeah. So I once that class was over, and I had my guitar, I brought it home. I actually have it over here. I
Oh,
can show
yeah.
you. I can show
Yeah.
you in a
Let's see
second.
it. Yeah, sure.
Um,
Anytime. Yeah.
but yeah, so I had it at home, and I would like noodle around on it. I played the trumpet from the time I was 9 or 10,
Mm.
um, up through high school. So I was in
Ah.
the concert band and jazz band, orchestra or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was heavy into that, and so I would sort of pick out parts that I had played on the trumpet, and I would try to learn them on the guitar, just like noodling, or I'd play little popular songs or lines.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my dad took me to Guitar Center for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
and I picked out like a little line six like practice amp or something,
Oh, okay.
and so I had that, and I wasn't really consistent about it
Mm.
for a couple of years actually. Um, and my best friend in high school was the guitar player in the jazz band,
Oh.
um, and I was listening all the time though. Like I got
Mm.
heavy into like blues music I discovered around that time,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what really like drove me to wanting to learn how to do it myself.
Interesting.
It was cool to have up until then, and I could say like, oh, I have a guitar, like I have a guitar, that's really
Right.
cool.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't until I discovered like what the blues was
Mm-hmm.
that I was like, oh, I really want to do this, because that form of expression was just really powerful to me. So
Mm.
um, I remember it was right after or like during our midterm exams, um, the winter of my junior year, and we had a bunch of downtime because you go to school, but you wouldn't have to go to classes. You just go to your exams, and then you could chill out or whatever. So in between
Mm.
exams, I asked my friend, I was like, hey, if I bring my guitar in, can you show me some stuff?
Ah.
He was like, yeah, sure, just bring it in.
Mm.
So um, next day I brought it, and I brought my little amp down to the music room, and he showed me like an E chord and an A
Mm.
chord. He showed me
Mm.
the minor pentatonic scale,
Oh.
which if anybody listening plays guitar or knows anything about it, then you know that's sort of the basis of a
Mm.
lot of guitar riffs and music and
Mm.
solos
Mm.
and all that kind of stuff. So
Mm.
yeah, that's how I got into it. And so he would show me some things, and I just take it home and just like listen to records or listen to Spotify or whatever, and
Mhm.
try to figure out what I was hearing. I never really liked reading music. Even when I
Mm.
played the
Mm.
trumpet and we had to
Mhm.
read it,
Yeah.
I would just memorize the music and
All
show
right.
up when it was time. When it
Yeah,
was time for the
memorized it.
concert, I just had
Right.
it memorized and I would just play it. I don't know.
Yeah,
Uh,
same. That's funny.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so um, I learned how to read tabs, but I
Mm-hmm.
never really learned notation,
Mm-hmm.
which hasn't really been a hindrance for me thus far. It's not something that I'm averse to. Like and I can read it slowly when I need to, but uh, yeah. So I would just listen to like Jimi Hendrix, and I'd listen to like Eric Clapton and Stevie Ray Vaughan and John Mayer and all these guitar players. Gary Clark Jr. was a big influence on me early on because he was one of the first like younger black men that I saw like playing blues and rock music and being successful at it and just having his own style was really dope.
For sure.
Listening to the Black Keys, and I would just like figure out different riffs and stuff. And I just took it from there, just like tried to expand and yeah, so that's how I got into like learning myself.
Yeah, and who are some of the blues musicians that really stuck out to you?
Yeah, so I remember I would listen to like this song called Red House.
Red House, not
That's
familiar.
that's a Jimi Hendrix song.
Oh.
And I would find like any version I could, like any bootleg version, the record versions. He recorded several versions on like anthologies and all that kind of stuff. I would just do deep dives. And then I got into BB King, and John Mayer and Freddie King. So different generations. BB and Freddie were sort of the same generation. John Mayer obviously is a current artist.
Right.
And the Black Keys, also current artists, but they played music that was just older. And eventually I got into I don't know if you're familiar with a guy called Derek Trucks. He's a guitar player. He's based out of Jacksonville, Florida. And he his uncle Butch Trucks was a drummer in this band called the Allman Brothers. And so they were like a legendary rock band from the late 60s going they just their last show they played in 2014. And they were like blues rock, but it was influenced with like jazz and all this kind of stuff. And so yeah, just any Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Sun House, Lightning Hopkins, just like anyone I could find who played blues, like I would listen to it. So,
yeah, I'm curious about, you said at 17 you kind of started diligently playing, and I'm curious, how could you speak a little more to like how you were developing your skills and how these different guitarists influenced, your playing?
Yeah, sure. So I would get home from school, and before I would do my homework, I'd just sit, or before I ate dinner or whatever, I would sit, listen to music, and I would play what I thought I heard. Thankfully, my ear, because I play the trumpet, was a decent ear, I relied on it a lot. And so I would literally, here, I'm going to grab a guitar and show you.
Oh, yeah, let's do it, man. Awesome. Yeah. Sweet. Special treat. Jeremy Hairston bringing over a guitar is going to show us some of his techniques of learning.
So this is the guitar that I built in high school.
Ooh, that's beautiful.
Thank you. I put my initials on it a little later.
Nice.
But I don't know if it's in tune, but that's okay. It's based on a Fender Telecaster. Super simple design, so that the neck is bolted on with these screws, and the strings go through the back and go up the neck and all that. So let's see.
Man, yeah, and talk about the condition. It still looks pristine from high school. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got some scratches and stuff. Some of the paint's missing a little bit, but it's
good.
Yeah, I like to keep my guitars as nicely as I can, but I'm not afraid to ding them up if I'm not too precious about them. They're tools to be used.
Right. Yeah, they're meant to be used.
Beautiful instruments. Yeah.
Right.
So I use all of my guitars. I don't keep them in their case and lock them under the bed or whatever.
Nice. Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so I would just sit. I had my little amp. I don't have this plugged in because it'd be really loud, but
okay.
Hopefully you'll be able to hear just acoustically.
Yeah.
I would figure out just the relationships between strings and frets. So I would figure out this note right here is the same as this note here. That's an octave, the seventh fret up on the next string. And so I would learn riffs. Like there's a song called I Got Mine by the Black Keys. It was popular like 2010, 2011 maybe.
Okay.
And it sounds like. And so I would just play simple stuff like that. It's not a lot of movement, not a lot going on, but it's powerful. Like if you listen to the record, it's a really, really great record. It's on the record called Attack and Release by the Black Keys.
Attack and Release.
Highly recommend it. But yeah, so I would sit and do that, and I would just go through and explore actually Spotify and Pandora, but really Spotify was a big sort of thing in helping me like find new music. I think it came out like my freshman or sophomore year of high school. At least I became aware of it then.
Right, yeah.
And I signed up for it, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. I can just listen to whatever.
Yeah, game changer. Like, don't have to buy the CD. Like, all this music accessible as well.
Yeah, and these days I actually prefer to like buy physical copies. I have like a bunch of records on the shelf back there.
Oh, nice. The collection. Yeah.
Yeah. But and I still listen to Spotify. I have Spotify on my phone or whatever.
Oh, right, yeah.
But yeah, so I would just go through and they would have like related artists. So I'd see the Black Keys. I'd be looking through and I'd see the White Stripes as a related artist. So I'm like, who are the White Stripes? And then I got into Jack White and I was like, wow, this guy is mind blowing. And one thing just would lead to another, and I'd go back in circles and find who else was related to who, musically speaking, who influenced who, and so on and so forth. And then YouTube was a big thing.
How so?
I'm fortunate enough to have come up playing in a time where all this information is just accessible to us via the internet. For good and for better and for worse, I think. I think it can hinder sometimes creativity, but I think it's good when you want to learn something and you don't have to bend over backwards to find it, especially when you're first starting out. That's a big deal because it keeps you wanting to come back to the instrument. And so I would watch videos by like Marty Schwartz. He's a big YouTuber.
Familiar name.
And he teaches he teaches popular songs that are current on the radio and classic songs. And he teaches them in a way that beginners can really sort of understand.
Oh, okay, nice. Yeah.
And so things like that were really, really helpful for me too. I did end up taking lessons once I got to college. I was taking private lessons for about 4 years. And I learned a lot of I learned a lot of jazz based things, and I learned a lot of finger picking, like on acoustic guitar.
Nice.
Yeah, and sort of like some Delta blues sort of things.
Wow.
So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
No, definitely. I have a couple follow-ups.
Sure.
Yeah, one, I think it's, fascinating what you're talking about, you kind of intently studying the fretboard. Like one thing, like with piano, I feel more comfortable because I feel like when I look at each, key, I know what that note is, but like on guitar, that is less clear to me. So I think that's interesting how you studied the fretboard. Like, could you kind of talk a little more to that process of like learning kind of the notes?
It's interesting you say that because I have the exact opposite reaction when I see a keyboard.
Interesting. Nice.
All I see is just like black and white.
Right.
And so I know what the keys are on the keyboard because I've just learned them, but I'm no keyboard player necessarily, but I can pick out what I need to. But on a guitar, I think it's what drew me to it was that I could see each note. Like you were saying with the keyboard, but with the trumpet, like it's even worse because you can't. It's three valves, so you have to do combinations. And on the trumpet, what changes the note is like the amount of air you put in, combined with
Oh,
the valve combination.
wow. Okay,
So
cool.
if you blow really hard, you get a higher note. If you
Mm.
blow softer, you get a lower note, and
Oh,
then
wow.
you do
Hmm.
different combinations
Oh,
with your right hand.
that's fascinating.
But
Hmm.
when I picked up the guitar, I could see, oh, like this is an E, and this
Huh.
is always going to be an E. And if I go 5 frets up from E, that's always going to be an A.
Mm.
And it
Mm.
doesn't matter like how hard I play. I can play soft. I
Mm.
can dig
Right.
into it. It's going to be
Mm-hmm.
an A. And I can
Yeah.
see where I would need to go if I want to go somewhere else. So if I want to go to another E,
Mm. Huh.
so I can see lines before I know to play them.
Mm. Mm.
And that helps when you're trying to develop a vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can see where I need to go instead of having to imagine it.
Right.
These days, when I hear in my head where I need to go, because I'm so familiar with where I am,
Mm.
um, um, I can sort of I don't have to communicate as hard between my brain and my hand.
Right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's really interesting, about that. And I'm curious because it does seem like, when guitarists are like soloing or shredding, it seems like they already know like what they're gonna play and like where they want to
Mhm.
go. So is that was that kind of your process of getting there in terms of like you have those ideas in your head and like by learning the fretboard and that way getting so comfortable you're able to kind of just it be an extension of what you had in your head.
Yeah, it was once I learned certain scales, I think the minor pentatonic, which I was telling you about earlier,
Mm-hmm.
um, uh, if we're in A, it sounds like this. Forgive me, my guitar is not in tune, but I didn't have time
Oh,
to
no,
tune it
yeah,
before.
that's cool. We
Um,
get the gist of it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and so once I learned that um, and learned how easily transposable anything is on the guitar, if I
Mm-hmm.
want to transpose it a whole step down, I just move my hand two
Yeah.
frets down. Half a step is 1 fret, a whole step is 2 frets.
Mm-hmm.
And so from here, I can go here, and
Mm-hmm.
it's the same muscle memory, just in a different place on the neck.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a huge that was a huge barrier that I learned to overcome
Mm-hmm.
from just it was something that I learned. It's like something was unlocked. I'll put it that way.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so once that was unlocked, it was like, oh, okay. So no matter what key I'm in, I know if I'm, I know I can play sort of this scale, and I can be like, I can sound how I want to sound.
Mm-hmm.
And so after that, um, like for here, I'd never, I didn't learn nearly as many scales on the trumpet as I should
Mm.
have, but I also didn't learn nearly as many as I did once I started playing guitar,
Mm-hmm.
because in any key, your hands like the muscle memory doesn't change, like I was saying
Mm.
before,
Right.
and so I could visualize a scale rather than having to see where the notes were on the page in my head if I wasn't looking
Mm.
at music. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that was really helpful to bridge those gaps. Um, like I'm quite a visual person,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's really helpful to know where I can go based on where I am and see that rather than have to imagine that and just know that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, eventually, that's a good thing to know when you're starting. Eventually, you do want to see where you are in your head or hear where you are and know where you want to go and not have to look down necessarily. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, so it's a lot of muscle memory,
Mm-hmm.
and um, it's a lot of experimenting with different licks, um,
Mm-hmm.
and adding your own flavor to them, and then knowing and then putting them into context. I have like a library, I guess, so to speak, of just like sounds and licks, or just phrases, musical phrases,
Mm.
and in
Yeah, just
different,
in your head, kind of.
yeah,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and in different contexts, I can just pull them out because I
Mm.
know no matter where I am and what key I'm in, the physical movement is not very different.
Mm.
So
Yeah, and
yeah.
this was actually one of my major questions. Us talking about scales and soloing. So
Mhm.
so you said the minor pentatonic is a good one, like one of the main ones to know
Yeah,
and learn.
yeah, the minor pentatonic, and the blues scale.
And blue scale.
So sorry, this is bugging me.
Mm.
So that's B minor. The pentatonic scale, and the blues scale are separated by one note, which is this flat five note. Um,
Mm. Mm.
so I can go into detail about like numbering the notes in the scale or whatever. So, but it's just
Mm.
pentatonic is five notes, penta meaning five, tonic meaning notes.
Mm.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then back to the one.
Mm. Mhm.
The blues scale adds the flat five, which is the it's half a step down from the fifth note in the major scale. So
Mm.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you flatten that,
Mm.
or take it a half step down,
Mhm.
and that's what makes it the blues scale, if you will. So
Mm.
you'll hear a lot of guitar players will play stuff like,
Mm.
and that stuff is blending the minor scale, the minor pentatonic scale, and the blues scale.
Mm.
So
Oh,
those are really good,
interesting.
especially if
Hmm.
you're into rock or if you're into blues guitar.
Right.
Then those are really good scales to
Hmm.
dig into.
And what would you say? I feel like one of my things is like I'll play the scale, but it
Mhm.
sounds so boxy, or like how would you say, like after learning the scale, then it's just a matter of, listening to music in those different genres and then like mimicking them? Because it seems hard for me to actually take the scale and then make it something that actually sounds like interesting or cool type of thing.
Yeah, sure. I would say listening and hearing examples of how things are used and being able to pick them out.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I think what comes with spending time with your instrument is just like having a touch and having a sense of how to be dynamic with it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Playing soft and playing loud and accentuating certain notes rather than other notes. Um,
Ooh, that's a key.
that's yeah, that's a major key,
Mm.
and just being a good musician. Because I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
you know, like if you play everything at the same volume for the
Right.
whole song, like
Mm-hmm.
the song's not gonna take you anywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's important to vary your dynamics. And
Right.
even when just playing a scale, if you make a point to accentuate the one and the three or something like that, or
Mm.
if you play a scale to a metronome,
Mm-hmm.
accent certain beats. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and practicing with the metronome is a major key that not enough people do, but it just helps
Yeah.
with your technique and your timing.
Right. Yeah, I saw John Mayer recommended that. So I was like, well, I mean,
Yeah,
if John Mayer says it,
yeah,
it's good enough for me.
yeah, exactly.
um, I appreciate, you going into those details. And I wanna, let me see, also ask you about, you said you took the lessons in college.
Hmm.
Was that through Howard or outside of Howard?
So my sister Maya
Oh, yes.
started taking lessons. Yeah, you know Maya.
Yeah.
She started taking lessons with an independent instructor outside of Howard,
Mm-hmm.
and so I started like right before I got to Howard, like the summer before.
Oh,
I started with that instructor, and yeah, I stuck with him all the way through. I never took guitar class at Howard because I actually was getting ready to sign up for it, and I asked somebody who had taken it, and they were like, "Yeah, it's like for beginners. So like if you are not a beginner, you probably get bored, or it won't be fruitful, a good use of your time."
Right.
Um, and all the advanced classes um, were for like minors and majors only.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah, but it was fine. I wasn't mad or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. So yeah.
Well, okay. Yeah. And then let me see. I want to, get back to some of your story here, So,
Sure.
yeah, I'm curious how, we talked about how you developed your skills. I'm curious, yeah, the different bands that you perform with. How did you get involved with them, and what has been your experience playing with them?
Okay. Yeah. So the first band I played with outside of like high school, like jazz band and stuff, and like
Mm-hmm.
little jam sessions with my friends. First
Mm-hmm.
band where I actually like went to gigs,
Mm-hmm.
and these were very humble gigs, but um, was that band was called Flawed Logic,
Oh,
and
yeah, I remember
yeah,
them.
they were
Mm,
popular on campus. They would play different events and stuff.
mm,
And so near the end of my freshman year, um, there was a like a kickback in Cook Hall, it was a some sort of like event that the RAs put together.
mm-hmm.
And Flawed Logic was playing in the lounge at
Mm,
Cook Hall. So I went down and I was checking them out. I got to sit in and play a song with them. And a friend of mine like sang a song, so we performed that with them.
oh,
And and they were really laid back. I never really played like R&B music like that. They were real. Yeah, it was like neo soul kind of R&B vibes.
mm-hmm.
Um, and another thing that stuck out was like they would just like switch instruments like in the middle of the set. So
Oh,
um, George, the singer, would like get on bass or get on keys,
right.
and
Mhm. Oh, let's see. So Jeremy kind of froze up for a second here. I'm sure he'll be back in 1 second. But yeah, Flawed Logic, they were, yeah, a band that they perform at different like socials at Howard, and they're really great. Looks like we got Jeremy back here. You had
oh yeah, here
frozen
we
up
go.
for a second, but
Sorry about that.
oh no, it's all good. You were describing like George, he will play multiple instruments.
Yeah, and like several of the members of the band were just like good at like several instruments. I was like, wow, this is
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, I remember
And
them being
so
super talented. Yeah.
yeah, so I linked up with the guitar player. His name is Bomani.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and so we would get together a couple times. We got together a few times before the end of that school year, and he showed me like how to play a couple of songs and different types of chords and stuff.
Uh,
And he was getting ready to graduate, so he was
mm,
like, I guess he talked to George and I got a call from George that summer. It was
mm,
like, hey, Bomani graduated, and we have a spot for a guitar player if you
uh,
want to join, or if you want
mm,
to just jam with us, like, just let me know.
hey.
And so I took that opportunity, and it was really cool. We had a lot of fun times playing
Mm,
around campus. We played every Friday night at Florida Avenue Grill.
wow.
Um,
Mm,
and yeah, so that was a lot of fun. And fast forward to my junior year. So I played with Flawed Logic all through my sophomore year, and then most of
mm,
those guys graduated.
mm, mm,
So after my sophomore year, there was nothing really going on, and I got a call in the spring of my junior year from a guy named Marcus,
mm, mm,
and Marcus he was like, "Hey, like I got your number from Logan, who was one of the keyboard players in Flawed Logic." And he was like, "I'm looking for a guitar player because I'm starting a band up." He had graduated from Howard a year or two prior, and so I recognized his face.
right.
And I didn't know he was a musician. I didn't know he sang or anything.
Mm,
And So I was like, yeah, that'd be cool. I
Right.
didn't have anything really going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I joined that band. That's the band I'm currently, one of the bands I'm currently playing with. We've been playing together since 2017.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
Um, 20, yeah, I think 2017. Our first gig, we actually hadn't had a rehearsal. we
Oh,
had
really?
we had a set list, and we
Oh.
were playing this some sort of like showcase gig downtown in
Mm.
DC.
Oh, wow.
Um, and yeah, we just like got up and played, and it was cool. Like we all met each other. I knew RJ who was playing keys at the time because
Mm-hmm.
he had played a couple times with Flawed Logic. I knew him from campus.
Oh, okay.
But everyone else, I just met him for the first time,
Wow, man.
and we showed up and played, and we
Mm,
synced up really well.
sweet. Wow.
Um, and yeah, that was really cool. We started hosting open mics, like you mentioned earlier,
Right.
the series DC open mic, and
Mm-hmm.
we've played some really cool shows since we started up. We played at a couple of the Smithsonian museums
Wow.
for like private
Ooh,
events,
wow. Mm.
which is those were really cool. We've played at the Howard Theater a couple of
Oh, man.
times.
Wow.
Um, where else did we play? We've had like sort of like residencies
Mm-hmm.
at a couple of um, a couple of like bars in DC.
Oh,
So
okay.
we played at a bar. Both of them are now defunct.
Mm,
Unfortunately, COVID kind of shut them down.
man.
But
Gosh. Yeah.
Smith Public Trust was one of them.
Oh,
That we
really?
played there
Oh, I hadn't
regularly.
heard
Yeah, they
that.
went out of
Oh,
business,
gosh. No
unfortunately.
way. Man.
Yeah.
Mm.
And another was the Caged Bird and Adams Morgan.
That
Um,
one closed too?
yep.
Oh, gosh. Oh,
Yeah.
man.
It's
Mm.
really sad. But
Yeah.
yeah, so we had a
Mm.
lot of good times playing there, and
Mm-hmm.
um, I'm looking forward to getting back with those guys again, because it's been the last show we played was 2019. Like we didn't, I
Ah.
don't think we played it all together. Maybe January we played a show.
Mm, mm.
Uh, but yeah, it's been a while. So yeah,
Yeah, man. Yeah, this, pandemic has really upended so much and
it really has.
yeah, kept us all distant in a way and not
Hmm.
performing. Hmm.
Yeah. So that's one of my current bands. My other current band is called Lorde Ana, and we started up maybe 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, the lead singer's name is Ron, and a mutual friend of ours put us in contact. A good friend of mine who's an excellent guitar player. His name is Jim. I
Mm-hmm.
knew him. I've known Jim since I was maybe 6 or 7. Um,
Um,
but his Jim's band had played a show in Baltimore, and I was at the show. And on the bill was Ron's old band, and so
mm-hmm.
we eventually got in contact, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm trying to put something together. Um, Let me know if you'd be interested in connecting and writing some music and stuff." Um,
Mm,
and that really piqued my interest because it's a whole different vibe from the Mercy Band. The Mercy Band is
mm,
really we do a lot of covers and we do a lot of like R&B and neo soul kind of stuff, a lot of
right.
jazzier sort of
Mm-hmm.
things.
Yeah.
And Lorde Ana, we do a lot of like indie rock and roll kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
which
nice.
I'm heavy into. So it gave me
Right.
a
I
chance
know
to
it.
flex the muscles. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting now that you mention it because when you were telling me all of your influences, a lot of those were on the rock side and
Yeah.
yeah, it seems nice to kind of have those two outlets of like the more soulful R&B with like the rock here as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
So
Wow.
we got
Nice,
together,
nice.
and I would we would just meet at his house and just see what came up and just like writing songs. And the first time we met,
Mm.
we wrote like 4 songs, and
Oh,
in like a few
wow.
hours.
Wow.
And
Yeah, talk
so,
about connecting. Yeah.
right, yeah. So that was really cool. And so we got the band together eventually. It was just me and him at first. So we got his old drummer and a couple other guys. And we wrote some songs and we selected a few of them to go on an EP that we released earlier this year.
Oh,
We recorded them at a studio downtown in Baltimore. So
mm,
yeah, I'm really
mm.
happy with how that turned out, and we're currently writing more songs now. So yeah, we actually
Oh,
haven't played a live show. Yeah, we were gonna play our first show as our EP release, which was gonna be in April.
mm.
So we released the EP, but we didn't get to play the
Mm.
show. So
Oh, and that's amazing that y'all got together, recorded an EP and put it out. Oh, I'm gonna have to listen to that, man. Oh, that's
yeah,
exciting. Okay, very cool. Yeah, I mean, on our blog, we also have like a playlist. So yeah, I'm gonna listen and put one of the songs on the playlist,
oh,
man.
for sure, that'd be
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, sweet. Okay, yeah, well, that's exciting. Wow. So the Mercy Band and Lorde Ana. Wow.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
you
I've
also.
been playing in my church.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've been playing. I started playing bass in my church
Oh, wow.
when I was in high school,
Mm,
and
mm,
then I started playing guitar around my junior year. I would just like drive back from DC. I live outside of Baltimore, so I would
mm.
drive back from DC every other weekend and play. And now I
Uh,
play consistently, obviously. So yeah.
Sweet. Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah, and we'll talk some more about, I think, the church maybe in a bit.
Hmm.
So, yeah. All right. So we got to hear some of your background. Um, in your story, developing your skills. We're gonna get into, some more guitar talk right now, man. I
Sure.
mean, I
Yeah.
see, in the background, what's a guitarist without a collection of guitars, you know
Oh
what I mean?
yeah. All my goods out here. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So like what are, the different types of guitars you have and like what differentiates each, guitar, man? Like what do you,
Okay. So
pull, for like this reason or that reason or like, and I know you
mhm.
built guitar, you built the guitar and you know the difference between the wood and the types of strings and everything. So yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah, so I really nerd out when it comes to guitars.
Hey.
I yeah, that's sort of one of my favorite things in the world.
I love it.
Um, so this, like I was saying before, I built this one in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's based on a Fender Telecaster. It has a Telecaster pickup down here. The pickups are these sort of silver things.
Mm-hmm.
And I can explain what those do in a second. But and then it has a pickup that was designed more for like a Gretsch guitar, which is Gretsch is a company and they make drums as well, but they make guitars and they're really famous with like chicken picking like country um,
Mm-hmm.
rockabilly type music. But
Mm-hmm.
they're used in rock and roll, they're used in blues, they're used all over the place.
I see.
But yeah, so I just wanted a different pickup because this was it was just kind of unique. I'd never seen one in a guitar like this. They
Right.
like people make them, but I'd never seen one at the time.
Mm.
So this was a guitar I started learning on,
Wow.
um, and it's very dear to me, and I will never ever get rid of it.
Ooh, man,
Um,
that's awesome. I mean, your first guitar, you built it. Like, what's better than
yeah,
that?
yeah, I'm really proud of that.
Mm.
So yeah, that was the first one.
Mhm.
Let's see. I'll show you. I'll kind of go in chronological order.
Sure,
Um,
sounds good.
so I've had guitars since that I have sold. I had a couple. One was a red Epiphone, this big round semi-hollow guitar that I
Mm-hmm.
ended up selling when I got this guitar,
Oh.
which is a Gibson SG Standard.
Ooh,
Uh,
ah, I want one of those kind. Yeah,
yeah,
the red one. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The red one is like a famous like this is an iconic guitar.
Right. Yeah.
And so this is made by Gibson Guitars. They used to be based in, ooh, I forget where, but
Mm-hmm.
now they're in Nashville.
Oh,
Um,
okay, nice.
it's gonna haunt me. I'm not.
Oh
No
man.
worries.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
come
So
back.
this SG stands for solid guitar.
Mm.
The Telecaster was designed. The first ones came out in the late 40s, like 1949, 1950.
Oh,
And they've been a standing line that Fender produces ever since then.
yeah.
Um, the first ones of these came out in 1961,
Oh, okay, 1961. Okay.
And the Les Paul, which is it looks similar to this, but this doesn't have it cut out right here. It
Oh,
was
right. Yeah, I've seen those for
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Anyone who's seen an electric guitar has probably seen a Les Paul or a Stratocaster.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this was supposed to be the successor to the Les Paul. And the guitar player named Les Paul, he didn't like it and he wanted his name taken off of it. So Gibson was like, okay, we'll just call it SG, standing for solid guitar. And yeah, and they never stopped making them. And they're beautiful instruments. They play really well. They're awesome for like rock and blues. I put this Bigsby vibrato system on it. So when you play, when I wiggle this, it the strings are bent under this rod, so it changes the pitch as I bend the the vibrato. And yeah, so I got this guitar in 2016, spring of 2016, and I was so happy, and I played countless gigs on it. I've learned so much. Like I learned so much music on this guitar. It's very precious to me as well. Yeah, so I was influenced by a guy named Derek Trucks. I think I might have mentioned it before, but he plays slide guitar.
Derek Trucks.
So he has like a glass thing like this that he plays. He puts it on his finger.
Wow.
So it's hard. It's kind of hard to hear without the amp on, but yeah. So I got into that, and he plays one of these, and I love it a lot. So yeah, that's the SG. Let's see the next one. 1 second.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay, so we got the SG Gibson. All right. Here's our next one here.
So this one is an Epiphone Century. I bought this in 2018.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, this one is unique because it's
beautiful too.
Yeah, it's fully hollow. So if I knock on it, there's nothing inside. And so it plays really well acoustically if I just strum.
All right. Yeah.
You can hear it really well. It has a really unique sound. And yeah, I don't play anything like the way I play this guitar is just completely different from the way I play any other guitar because of how it feels just under my hands. The third string here, the G string is wound like it is on an acoustic guitar. So it's not smooth. You can feel the ridges. And that makes it harder to bend. I can do it, but it's much more difficult. And it gives the guitar a really like raspy sort of tone along with this pickup. Yeah, it's a beautiful sounding guitar, I think. And it actually wasn't super expensive. I got a cool deal on it because it was like off clearance or something, and I was really surprised. I'd gone to the store and I saw it there and I was like, ooh, that would be really cool. And I was, at the time I was working in California. And so I was getting ready to leave like in a couple of weeks. And I was like, man, if I come back here like before I leave and this guitar is like any cheaper, like I can't leave without buying this guitar. So yeah. And I've had this one for a couple of years now and I really enjoy it.
Are there particular genres you play on that one?
I do a lot of songwriting on this one. And just like sort of my singer-songwriter side, even though I don't really sing like that.
Okay, I see.
But when I believe I can sing, I sit and strum along and sing some tunes. So
that's sweet.
Yeah. So there's that one. I have 3 basses over here. One is on loan from a friend.
Nice.
I'll show you. So this bass I got for my 18th birthday. This was a gift from my
Ooh.
parents.
Oh, nice. Shout out to parents.
Yeah, it's a Squire, so it's like Fender's East Asian counterpart, where they build their guitars for cheaper there.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, it's a jazz bass, another 60s design.
Yeah,
Most of
looks
my
classic.
guitars, are based on old designs. In fact, most guitars in general are based on old designs.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so I played jazz bass. I played in my high school jazz band on this bass. And yeah, it still plays pretty good. Yeah, you can sort of groove on it real easily.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's cool. It's a solid instrument.
Sweet.
And then I have this Hofner violin bass, which, if you're familiar with Paul McCartney or the Beatles at all, then you'll recognize this bass.
I do.
So this is the type of bass. This Hofner is a German company, and Paul McCartney liked Hofner basses because they're symmetrical. So he's left-handed, so he would just turn it over, and it wouldn't be ergonomically difficult for him to play.
Interesting.
Yeah, this one is also hollow inside, even though it's chambered. So so even though it's hollow, there's no F holes or anything. So yeah, that's that bass.
That's interesting. I mean, when you say, so when it's chambered and there's no holes in it, does that mean so could you still play it without plugging it in, or
you could, you just wouldn't hear it too much.
So is it chambered just yeah, why would they have it hollow? Is there a
one, it
reason
makes
for that?
lighter. It's incredibly light. And it's more resonant. So the wood resonates because there's air instead of, so when vibrations have to go through air, or when vibrations have to go through wood, they don't get quite as far as when they just go through air. And so there's chambers in the body of this. They cut them out and then they stick the top on, or they stick the top and back onto the sides. And but they have cutouts in there, so it's like weight relief, it's resonance, and it gives it a unique tone too. There's something about semi-hollow and like chambered guitars and basses that I really, really enjoy.
Interesting.
So yeah, let's see. Here we go. Okay, so this is my favorite bass. This is another Squire, but surprisingly like solid quality, and it sounds amazing to me. It's a precision bass, so this one came out before the jazz bass in the early 60s. If you're familiar with any of like Motown songs, obviously everyone knows Motown. Most of those songs were played on a bass similar to this.
Interesting.
And the trick was that the bass player named James Jamerson, he played on most of Motown's hits. He would put a piece of foam under the bridge right here, or under the strings right by the bridge, to mute the strings, to sound more like an upright, like jazz bass.
Oh wow! Huh.
So yeah, I bought this my freshman year of college, and I've loved it ever since. And I've got one more. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, let's see it. Yeah.
Okay, so this last one is my absolute prized possession. This is my latest guitar. It's a Paul Reed Smith, which is a company. Well, it's a man, but his company is based about an hour from where I live in Annapolis. their base,
I
or
see.
outside of Annapolis on Kent Island. And I this is by far the best instrument that I own and my
Wow.
favorite to play.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's so it's based on a Les Paul. It's based on a 1959 Les Paul, which is like the holy grail of guitars for many, many people.
Yeah.
A true 1959 Les Paul will sell for easily $300,000. Yeah, they're super rare, super sought after.
Wow. Whoa.
Let me turn this light on.
Yeah.
Yeah, um, so lots of companies like take that design and try to make it their own. And Paul Reed Smith did just that, and I think they hit it out the park.
Wow.
So it's got two pickups, which sound beautiful, and a volume and a tone control, which rolls at like the high frequencies, it like rolls them down or rolls them back up. That's what a tone control does. So if you hear like a jazzy kind of sound, usually the tone control is rolled down. If you hear like rock, the tone control is usually rolled up. And yeah, this one is semi-hollow. So this side of the body is not chambered. This side is, and you can see the F hole there. So you can sort of see inside of it. But yeah, so it's light, it's resonant. The neck feels amazing. It feels like my hand feels at home on this neck. The guitar just sings. It's a joy to play. And I received this. This was actually a gift from my parents as well. On my birthday, my 24th birthday. And I was super, super humbled when they told me they wanted to buy me a guitar and asked me which one I would want. And I had it's an expensive guitar, like I'm not gonna lie. And so I didn't want them to buy it for me because I was just like, I would rather just like save up and just buy it, down the line. I never dreamed I would like own one anytime soon, because yeah, but it was like it was my dream guitar, really.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you, what is your dream guitar? And it sounds like this is like you've gotten it.
It's right here. This is it.
Yeah, so definitely, speak on it, wow. So
yeah,
that's amazing. So your parents, got you this one, and
yeah, I feel honored to own it and to play it every day. So yeah.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, you said just the sound of it and the style of it, it's your favorite instrument that
it's in my opinion, it's beautiful to look at. It sounds amazing. It's built to like really, really high quality standards of quality. So yeah, it's really
wow.
nice.
Yeah, that is amazing. I love that, in each of those instruments you hold dear to your heart and kind of has a different reason and, different kind of roles that you pick them up for. And a lot of them are based off of like classic, historic styles and reasons as well. Wow.
Yeah.
Man. Oh, sweet, man. Okay. So we did the guitars. What are your go-to guitar pedals, man? We're keeping it rolling.
Man. Here, let me I'm gonna unplug this so I can pick it up and show you.
Oh yeah.
So I've got a sizable pedal board here.
Sweet.
So let me turn it around. These are my pedals. I got into pedals shortly after I got into the guitar.
Okay. Wow.
And those. Pedals are really cool because not only do they just like change the sound of the guitar, but they can really help you. They can be a tool in songwriting if you find a sound that really inspires you. But I also really enjoy just like the actual act of putting together a board like this. These don't come attached to the board. Like you buy them independently if anyone doesn't know. And so I put clearly a lot of money into this thing, but yeah, so you have to, once you get the pedal, you have to figure out where it sounds best in the chain of effects. So on this board, the chain starts with this white pedal right here. This is a tuner, which is always a necessity.
Yeah.
And then it travels along the bottom half of the board. So through this blue one, across the big black one, to the little black one down here. And then that goes back around to this blue one up here, and across here, and then this goes out into my amplifier. They all do
saying
different
that
things.
each of those, like each effect goes through like the same, like a essentially like a line cable.
Yeah, so the
Each of
signal
the
goes
effect
through
kind of
each effect.
compounds on each other.
They can. So they're all
Oh,
turned.
wow.
When they're all turned off, you don't hear any of the effects, and you just hear what the amp sounds like. And then when you turn, I have it wired so that when you turn one on, obviously you hear just that, unless you turn it off or you have different combinations. There are people who make controllers to let you turn on multiples at a time. I'm not quite that advanced, but I'll get there eventually. But I can sort of try to explain what each one does. I'm going to shift my camera down a little bit so you can see.
Oh, yeah.
So starting over here, like I said, this is a tuner. This is a fuzz. A fuzz is a really like nasty sort of distortion sound, but sounds really cool in context. If you think of Jimi Hendrix's kind of sound, that's he used a lot of fuzz. This is an auto wah, which an example of that sound would be John Mayer has a song called Rosie off of his last album, which he uses that this type of effect. And if you're familiar with like Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead, he uses this kind of effect, or he used this kind of effect.
Isn't it like the wah wah wah, like wah
yeah,
wah, like that?
And it does it with each note you play. So like the auto wah can detect the note and play it faster than you could use this pedal to make that sound. Which brings me to this one. This is a wah wah pedal that you click it on and you put your foot on it and wobble it up and down to make the wah 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 sound.
Okay.
Yeah. This is another like overdrive fuzz kind of sound. These three are all sort of overdrives. They're just different flavors. They sound different. Coming up here, this is a chorus. And a chorus is a real like 80s kind of sound. It sort of warbles the pitch. It's called a what's the term? Modulation. It modulates the pitch of the signal.
Does it kind of make it sound like there's more than one note playing or something, or is it more just like it bends?
Yeah, it bends the pitch, but it keeps the natural note. That also plays through, so it sounds like there's multiples playing. Sounds like there's one straight one and then one warbly one going. If you can visualize it that way. So this red and blue one is a octave pedal. So it has a signal you can play the regular signal and then you can have a note up, an octave up. An octave is eight steps, but it's the same note, just higher. And then you can have two octaves down, which is the same note, just lower and then lower again. So it's really cool if I want to emulate a bass with my guitar, or if I wanted to add a little shimmery kind of sound.
Wow. Yeah.
This blue one is a delay, so it's just like an echo. So I could play a note, and I would just hear the trails, the echo trails, and it has all different types of delays and stuff. This big black one is a reverb and tremolo pedal. So reverb is what you hear naturally when sound waves bounce off of walls and come back and hit your ears. You're hearing the reverb. In a big like cathedral, you hear a lot of reverb. In a small room, you hear a little bit. This emulates different sizes of rooms and things. And then the tremolo sends the volume up and down. So it's a really nice sound. I guess I could plug it in and show you.
Sure. Yeah.
That would probably make more sense than me just explaining everything. But and then this is a looper pedal, which is really handy. You can play something into it, hit this button, and it'll play it back, and you can design songs and things that way. I've done solo gigs where I use this a lot and just sort of create whole songs with just the looper pedal. So yeah.
Man, I love that. Yeah. Man, yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful board. I know a lot of people, and myself included, look at guitarist pedals and wonder like, well, what does each one do? So yeah, I appreciate you going through and explaining.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, so sorry about that.
No, yeah. Wow.
So yeah, give me 1 second. I can turn the amp on and plug it in for you.
Yeah, sounds great, man. Cool. So sweet. Yeah, Jeremy is gonna plug in his guitar to the amp and give us a little demonstration of some of the pedals so we can actually hear what the effects sound like. So that'll be a nice treat for us. Very cool. Sweet. People use loop pedals. I think Ed Sheeran is pretty popular for, being in a whole arena and just having different loop pedals and, as a solo musician performing, his whole show just as a loop. So yeah, Jeremy has a loop pedal on his board as well. Okay. So yeah, I find, the loop pedals to be fascinating. And I've seen, some of Jeremy's YouTube videos, and he posts on Instagram as well, where he includes, like, he plays the loop. So he might start with like a chord progression and then add like a solo on top of the chord progression after he loops it. So it's, really cool how, a guitarist can just build up whole songs with the loop pedal.
Yeah, so can you hear that? Well,
yeah, sounds great. Ooh, I like it.
I'll tilt down here. So yeah, I'll go through sort of what each one sort of sounds like on its own. And I use them in combinations with each other. We could be here for 8 hours just going through combinations. So I won't bore you too much with that. So this is like the fuzz I was telling you about.
Man.
Something like that.
Man,
this is
sweet.
The auto wah sort of sound.
Hey.
Yeah, this is the wah. Let me see if I can sort of turn so you can see me, but.
Ooh. Hey. Oh, nah. Hey, nah.
So if you ever hear something that sounds like you can sort of get that. So that was just fun to do.
Yeah, it's funny.
So these next three are all overdrives, so different types of overdrives. So here's what it sounds without any overdrive. So a nice clean sound. With overdrive, it gets kind of nasty. So that's one. I'm not stacking them, so they're not all on at the same time. Here's the next one. So a little less severe, but. And then the last one can get really distorted. I don't think it's set to be super, super distorted, but. So yeah, and then the top row, here's what the chorus sounds like. So without the pedal on, and with the pedal on, it gives you a nice like 80s sort of nostalgic sound.
Right, yeah.
So I'm sure everybody knows this song. Purple Rain.
Oh wow,
Prince.
classic. Yeah.
Yeah, that's that kind of sound. The octave pedal, the way I like to use it the most is with the octave up, not so much the octave down, because if I'm playing with the bass player, it's kind of useless.
Oh
But
yeah.
I'll play like, that's the regular sound.
Mm-hmm.
And with it, so it can be kind of subtle,
Mm-hmm.
or I can take it sort of to an extreme and you hear more of the high note than the low note. So yeah, there's that.
Interesting.
Delay is pretty self-explanatory. So if I hit it,
Oh right. Wow. Yeah.
and that's fun to experiment with and get different sounds.
Mm-hmm.
The reverb sounds like this when it's on. Um, so that kind of that sort of reflective kind of sound.
Mm-hmm.
That's one sort of sound that's available, but you can also get really cool sort of ambient types of sounds. So you can sort of hear the notes sort of trailing off into the distance.
Right.
And the last effect before the looper is the tremolo, which sounds like this. So if you can hear kind of going up and down, I can make it more severe. So and yeah.
Wow.
The last one's a looper. We don't have to demonstrate that one. But yeah, so.
You guys can see Jeremy's YouTube and Instagram for the looping, where, he uses the looping. Yeah. I'm curious if and how your love of guitar has evolved.
Oh, that's a good question. I think it certainly has. I think it certainly has. I think my love of guitar has always been, it's always been, I've always loved just the act of playing guitar, the act of learning on the instrument, the act of learning new songs, the process of learning new things, and just the sounds that the instrument creates, and the possibilities. The things that have changed, though, are sort of like why I love it, and
Interesting.
why I love it, and why I love the things that I do, how I approach it for sure. Obviously, the things I play have changed because I just learn more and I grow as a musician.
Okay.
But yeah, I think I love it as much as I love it as a hobby. I love it as a gift nowadays, that I'm honored to be able to even play, to play the guitar, and to make music that I think sounds good,
Wow.
Yeah, I never approached it with the intent to like impress people. Somewhere along the way that kind of crept in, and that wasn't all I did was play to impress people, but I became aware of it, and I've had a lot of time to just think to myself the past year or so with the pandemic and everything.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's helped me to refocus my efforts on just playing for the joy of it, and letting everything else come after that. Obviously, I play for money because it's part of my job.
Yeah.
But the money, I have to try not to let the money sort of dictate how I play or what I play to a certain extent. If I'm playing at a gig or a wedding and they request something, obviously, do what you can.
Right.
But it's not about necessarily the money. It's about sharing what I can with people and trying to brighten their day if I can. And that's not to say that money is like terribly good. I'm not rich by any means. I don't. I make an okay living, but yeah, I try not to center too much on the things that are outside of my just playing the instrument,
Definitely.
And just the intrinsic joy of doing that. It keeps me coming back. So yeah.
Yeah, you said a lot in there that I think is really interesting. And I relate to what you were saying about, not starting playing guitar to impress people, but it creeping in. I'm curious if you could speak more to that. Do you think that came as you were performing gigs or as you were performing or like putting yourself out there on like social media? I'm curious kind of.
Yeah, social media for sure. That's the biggest way it crept in. Just seeing all these like child prodigies and stuff as you just kind of scroll through Instagram or whatever.
Right.
And it can be really discouraging, honestly, and not because you don't like what you hear or see from other people, but it's the comparison thing, right?
Exactly.
Comparing yourself to people who are just in completely different parts of the world, different circumstances, have been playing longer, or just like had lessons their whole lives, or whatever it is. Like, there's no reason to compare yourself. Everybody sounds different on any instrument, really. As it should be. It's another way to express yourself and express what's inside of you. So comparing yourself, and then on the other end of that, just tailoring what you play or what you put out there to be what you think other people want to hear from you. It's not a good way to go about it. I don't think it is, at least.
I agree.
Yeah, I think just playing what you feel like you want to play and put out what you feel like you want to put out. That's the way to go. So
yeah, I relate to that. You also mentioned, well, it sounds like you said, definitely during this pandemic, you've had time kind of to yourself, kind of to get centered again on, well, to be centered in yourself and, playing, essentially for you and what you want to play.
Yeah.
How's your approach to guitar changed?
My approach, I approach it much more, not gingerly, but my physical like handle on the guitar is much lighter. Playing a guitar, well, any guitar really, but when I first started playing, I would play super heavily. Like, I was really heavy handed. So I would just kind of beat the strings. Because I would just see, I would see players like Stevie Ray Vaughan who played like that. He was a blues guitar player in the 80s and 90s. And beautiful, beautiful music that he played. Ferocious music, honestly. And it sounds so good, but he played like really, really thick strings. So he had to hit the guitar hard. And that's just how he played. And that was his voice. And he could play with dynamics. But not everybody needs to play like that. And I found that I didn't need to play like that in order to express myself. So a lot of times I just sit quietly, and I'll play even unplugged. I mean, it's plugged in, but the amp is like, the volume is turned down. So I could play softly. I'm out of tune again. But you get the idea. So I can play real hard and express myself that way. But I've learned in the past few years that past year or so, really I've dug into that sort of style of really being light and seeing how open the guitar can sound when you're just kind of when you lay off with your right hand, and you don't have to dig into the strings with your left hand as much. If you can hear that, like you can bend the note out of tune if you press it too hard. So and just sort of messing with different types of vibrato, like violin type of vibrato versus this. I think they're both valid and they're both good. They're both good for different contexts. But yeah, so I've just been experimenting with a softer touch, more sensitive touch, and I think it's been really cool. It's helped me to expand my vocabulary, because when you play softer, you play differently, and so at least for me, and yeah, so it just has widened my view of things. And I've heard some players that inspire me to do that. Players like Bill Frisell, who's a jazz guitar player, and Julian Lage, who is one of my favorites. He's also a jazz player. Yeah, beautiful musicians, and I learned a lot from just listening to their dynamics, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, even in these demos you've been giving us, you're showcasing, your range as well, like just these different styles. Yeah, man. You mentioned you started to, thinking more so of your playing as a gift, and I'm curious about how your faith comes through your playing.
Yeah, so I'm what most people would call religious, and I've always been sort of surrounded by that. My father's a preacher, so that's where that comes from. But I've taken it into my own self as an adult, and yeah, so I see playing the guitar as a gift. I think when I look back and see the circumstances that led to my just like being a guitar player and being a musician, I can see that it would seem coincidental, but I don't believe too much in coincidence. And so, yeah, I feel like it was something that really came naturally to me. And I think it was just a gift from God, from the Creator, just the ability just to have that in me. Of course, I've worked hard to cultivate that and to grow it and to put it to use. But yeah, I think that has been my personal gift. But I also think, as I was saying, I think before we started, like music itself, I believe is a gift, just from God to us as human beings. I think it's the closest thing we have to actual magic. And it's such a powerful tool. I studied a lot of like musical based like case studies and stuff in college. I got my degree in psychology, and so I would study like Alzheimer's patients or patients with dementia, and it's so fascinating because the part of the music that is responsible for, or the part of the brain, excuse me, that's responsible for remembering like music and for recalling that and for the memories associated with that is untouched by schizophrenia or Alzheimer's or dementia. Like patients in like hospice care and stuff like that, if you play the music from their youth, or music that they just really enjoyed over their life, their brains light up, and it's so fascinating.
Right.
And yeah, I really think it's a powerful tool to, not to be cliche, but to like bring people together.
Yeah, certainly.
But also to heal, sort of just like mental, to help people along who are going through mental challenges. I'll put it that way. Because I know, just like in times when I'm low, in times even like as a teenager or as a kid, when I'd be upset, my first thing that I would do is just go listen to music, because it helps me to relate to whoever's singing the song, or it helps me to calm down, or helps me to clear my mind. It's a really powerful tool. So yeah, I believe it's a gift.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. One of one of my favorite kind of areas of psychology is studying the music on the brain and the
Mm-hmm.
body and everything. And I think I like that. I think that's really beautiful. Music as a gift. And I also just think I just see the parallels even when we think about like the Holy Spirit and like air and like breath,
Yeah.
also associated with singing as well.
Mm-hmm.
And like when you pray or like when you sing, you're praying twice, as the saying goes. And
Yeah.
but also just the relationship between the breath and like our actual life. And there's an area of psychology, it's called like polyvagal theory, and it talks about essentially when you're doing deep breathing, it
Mm-hmm.
increases the vagal tone, like the activation of the vagus nerve, and that helps you to calm down and regulate your nervous system. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I really enjoy that research in that area. So kind of all of that kind of within and then of course like bringing people together. It's
Mm-hmm.
just a beautiful thing that we have in life.
Yeah.
hmm Let me see. All right, let me see. I'm looking at all right, I'm looking at our things here. Okay. Okay, how are you feeling?
Feeling good.
Okay.
Yeah. Feeling real
All
good.
right, so am I, and I'm really enjoying you know we'll just keep going. All right. So I'm curious about I guess the thing is like, so if we go too long, then the
Mm-hmm.
file is going to be like hard to
Got you.
upload. So that's why I'm kind of
Sure.
like there's a lot I want to ask you, and it's been
Oh
so
yeah.
great.
We can do a
And
part
then
two sometime if you want. Like it's no problem.
okay. Um Let me see. Um I think an interesting place for people would be for beginner guitarists, like somebody that just bought their guitar,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. Like it's just like they're excited, they have their guitar, it's on the stand in their room. What
Mm-hmm.
are your tips for a beginner?
Play what you want to hear.
Oh,
Um,
play what you want to hear. Yeah.
if you like listening to country music, then play your favorite country songs. Learn them and play them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you want to learn jazz, then start learning jazz. Like you don't have to learn some there are no prerequisites to learning what you want to learn. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there are steps to take, obviously, especially if you want to get into more complicated types of music. But you can always just start. If you want to play country music, you don't have to start by learning like a jazz standard necessarily. Or if you want to play jazz, you don't have to start by learning like blues or, well, that would be helpful actually. Blues is the
Yeah.
basis for
Yeah.
most popular music these days. Well,
Mm-hmm.
of the 20th century, I'll put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But like, there's really no barriers. Like, a lot of people say, like, oh, before you buy an electric guitar, you need to buy an acoustic because that's just like what you
All
have to
right.
do.
Mm-hmm.
And I that's just not true. Like, if you want to play electric, then buy an electric guitar.
I like that.
Um, if you want to play acoustic, then do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a whatever you prefer, go after it, and don't
Mm.
let anyone tell you that you can't, because it's really a matter of putting the effort in to get what you want out of it.
Mm.
Um, so yeah.
I think that's a really important message. And, we're playing music to enjoy it. And then it'll
Exactly.
also help us to be more invested when we're actually playing the things we want to be playing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Let me see. You are, as we can see throughout this interview, very talented. And you also kind of offer, various services. So, for people who are kind of interested in, making a living off of music, what are some of the various income streams musicians can have?
That's a really good question. I think under normal circumstances,
Mm-hmm.
gigging would be one. Um,
Mm-hmm.
going out, even busking if you're down with that. But yeah, just going out and playing at shows, connecting with other musicians and getting into bands and just going to places and playing, playing bars and such, which I've done my fair share of that. Giving lessons, if you get to a place where you feel like you can teach a beginner or even an intermediate player what you know, that can always be a good thing. For me, I offer lessons and I do gigs, and man, what else do I do?
You're also a session guitarist.
Right, sessions. That was my last one. So
Yeah.
I record. Sorry, it's been a long day.
No, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, so learning how to record would be a really good tool. And I won't lie, like I was watching a video on YouTube today that asked this same question. Like the guitar player's name is Rhett Shull. He's a YouTuber. I watch his stuff all the time. I'm a big fan of his.
Nice.
And he posed the question, or the video was titled like 5 things they don't teach you in music school. And
nice.
he was at least in his experience, there were some things that he utilizes today in his life as a professional musician that he wasn't taught when he went to music school 10 years ago. And learning how to record and how to mix music and how to make it sound good when it's recorded is a skill that you can learn in music school, but they don't always teach you. But it's a really good tool to be able to have. And I'm not necessarily a professional engineer or producer necessarily, but I have a humble recording setup and I can record stuff that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I was curious,
home,
about, kind of your experience of learning to record.
Yeah, so I've learned a lot just by observing other people. One of my mentors is a producer, so he has a really big home studio, and I spent time in there playing on sessions for him, and just watching him navigate the software and the hardware that he has and all those types of things, using different microphones for different things. And so I've learned from that, and I've learned from just experimenting. I have so there's the software that people used to record. It's called Digital Audio Workstations, DAWs, DAWs.
Right.
And so the one that I use the most is called Logic. It comes,
nice.
Well, it doesn't come with Apple, but it's for Apple products. And so once I had that on my laptop, I was able to just sort of experiment and see how things work and see what sounds good and what doesn't. How best to utilize the software to my advantage. So, but GarageBand, if you have an iPhone, if you have an iPad, if you have an Apple computer, it's free. It comes on there, and you can just start messing around in there and just experiment. You can make whole songs in GarageBand. You can make a whole album in GarageBand. It's a really useful tool, and so that's what I would say for that.
Yeah, I think Steve Lacy, he did one of his projects at least on just GarageBand
on his phone, yeah.
Right, yeah, on his phone. Let me see. Okay. Oh yeah, I did want to ask you about, you mentioned your sister Maya. She's a singer-songwriter as well and guitarist. And you've performed on her music as well. So I was kind of curious, what that was like for you to be able to play for your sister.
Yeah, it was cool. She had her first record came out a few years ago, and she would just call me up, and my mentor is also her mentor, and we would go and we'd go to his house and record. And yeah, it was cool working on that music, just watching her creative process, and it was my first time recording in even like a semi-proper studio outside of home, and so I learned a lot from that process. I enjoyed it. It's recording in a studio, like with a producer and stuff, it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of repetition and hard work, and you gotta make sure you're on point when you do get ready to play, and all those kinds of things. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. We got to play like her CD release concert, and yeah, I'm trying to think back to those days.
It was it was years ago, you know. So
yeah, it was like
right.
4 years ago, I think, when we were recording most of it. And so yeah, it was really cool. It was cool to be able to add what I do to somebody else, like to collaborate in that way.
Right.
Because she can do what I can't do. I'm not a very good singer, but I can do what she can't do. I play guitar just more than her, and I play different styles and things like that. So I was able to add sort of my own little flavor. And yeah, so it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I bet. All right. Yeah, and we talked about yeah, so well before that. Yeah, is there like a question that you've always wanted to answer about like guitar, like music? Like, yeah.
That I've always wanted to answer?
Yeah, like you wish somebody had like asked you, or like or even like something, if there's anything you kind of want to share kind of with the listeners and the people watching. Yeah.
I don't know if there's a question I'd want to answer. Maybe, I guess I can just kind of reiterate what I was saying earlier about just playing music that you want to hear. I think that's a really important key to just expressing creativity through music with whatever instrument you play, even if it's not a conventional thing that you've heard before, especially if it's not a conventional thing that you've heard before. I'll put it that way. Because that's where revolutionary things happen in music, is where everybody has something within them. Everybody who picks up an instrument has something to say on that instrument, even if they're not the most talented. You can still say something, like,
right, yeah.
So just say it. It's there's no pressure like people seem to think there is. There's pressure in life, but there's a lot of times in music, and in my experience, the pressure has been inflicted. So there's not nearly as much pressure sometimes as you might think there is. So just go for it. Don't be ashamed to try something new, try something different.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. That's an important message, definitely. And yeah, I agree. Sometimes we can get in our own heads about, our own abilities or like our worth, as musicians. So
exactly.
Yeah. And, we talked about that well, when we're not in a pandemic, you gig, but then you also do now hold, virtual lessons as well.
Yep.
And, session guitarists. So, how can people book you?
Yeah, so you can reach out to me via my website, jrhairston.com. We just went live with it a couple weeks ago. So that's exciting. You can also reach out to me on Instagram or Facebook. Facebook, Jeremy Hairston. Instagram, @jrhairston. You'll see me. I think it's like a gray black and white picture of me holding a guitar. And if you go to the page, it's just a bunch of guitar videos. So you'll know me when you see me. Yeah.
Sweet. Okay. And yeah, how else can people, keep up with you and follow you?
Yeah. So you can check out my YouTube page, which is JR Hairston. And you can, if you do check it out, please be sure to subscribe and like it and all that kind of stuff for the algorithm, And you can check out my band's music. It's called Lorde Ana, Lordeana. If you dig like indie rock and roll kind of stuff, you should dig it. I think it's pretty good. So, yeah, check me out there. I composed all the music and played the bass and guitar on all the songs.
Oh wow!
So, Yeah,
Sweet. You played the bass on them. Did you also play guitar as well?
I did. Yeah, we didn't have a bass player while we were recording, so
Oh.
I played the bass parts, and then well, I played the guitar parts first, and then went back and played the bass parts.
Oh, okay. Wow. Wow. I love it. I mean, yeah, it's been really great chopping it up, and we got to go into some detail about
Yeah,
your
yeah.
journey, and then also some gear and your guitars too. So that was a real treat for me, man. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you for having me again. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, everybody, please follow Jeremy and keep up with him.